Today we're going to start on Zion and Beis Chatas Minalan, the last two lines of the page. Thank Hashem, we're able to learn Torah every day. For learning, we should have Beis Mikdash immediately, and we're learning also for Shlomo, for Rabbi needs, and Father, and for Naftali, Bela. Oh, you spoke to me. What's he doing? Okay, the Gemara says like this: Chatas Minalan. We learned in the Mishnah that any carbon. What are you showing me over there? Arts and crafts. Any carbon that's brought Shalei Lashma, that's brought for the sake of a different carbon, it's carbon. It's not a problem. The exception, two exceptions, a chatas and a carbon pesach. So we spoke about the carbon pesach before, that the carbon pesach needs to be brought lishmai for its own, for its sake, not for a different carbon. And the chatas we're going to talk about today. Chatas minal, where do we know? What's the source? The chatas that's brought and for as if it's a different carbon. So how do we know that it's possible? We all have the karbanas brought for a different carbon. The carbon is kosher. Just the owner has to bring a new sacrifice because it didn't satisfy his vow. But the carbon is still brought. Here, the carbon isn't even brought. So where do we see that? The ksiv, we have a pasuk. Pasuk says that you should slaughter it for a chatas. See, the shchita has to be for the sake of a chatas and not for a different sacrifice. Okay? Ashkan shchita, we find that shchita has this halacha, that the shchita needs to be done.
When you said shchita, I should say Kabbalah Shem.
Kabbalah minalan. How do we hold that? You're ahead of me. How do we know that the catching of the blood needs to be for sake of a chatas, to ksiv? Because we have a pasuk that says, "Look, that the kohen will take from the blood of the chatas, take kabbalah shem chatas." That the catching of the blood should be for the sake of a chatas. So okay, so we have another source. It says v'lakach. It says midam hachatas. That means it has to be for this, that you receive the blood with the intention that this is a chatas. Ashkan shchita v'kabbalah. So far we're holding. We have two out of the four, right? We're going to drop the third one. We're going to not drop it. It's going to come automatically. Rashi says. Halacha is going to be together with the Kabbalah. Ashkan shchita v'kabbalah zrika minalan. How do we know zrika? The sprinkling of the blood. So we have a source for that too. Damakra, the kohen will atone because of it for his sin offering. Should take kapar l'shem chatas, that the sin offering has to be brought. The atonement has to be brought for the sake of a chatas. Mechatasai actually means from his sin. And so, therefore, the sacrifice is called a chatas. Ashkan shina kodesh. He only taught me from these psukim, these three psukim, only taught me that you can't change it from a chatas to a different sacrifice. Shini ba'ila minalan. How do you know you can't change owners? Have intention for a different owner. Amakra, the pasuk says, if you look back in the pasuk that we just quoted by the Zrika, it says v'chiper alav hakayin mechata. Alav. On him, Allah v'leil chavera, on him and not on his friend. Okay? Gemara says, Ashkan the mitzvah. So far, you only told me what you're supposed to do. You didn't tell me that if you don't do it like that, it's possible. Maybe it's still kosher. Right? We don't know that it's possible, you just know that it's a mitzvah. You're not supposed to do that. Lakiv minalan, how do you know? How did they translate lakiv? I can never get the... No. That's what you have, prevent?
To prevent.
Oh, to prevent it from being valid. Okay, yeah. I can also say it with a lot of words. How do you know that it prevents the chatas from being valid? I thought there's like one word. Hold back. Lach means to hold back. Kedam Ravuna Beit Rav Yeshua. Ravuna Beit Rav Yeshua says chatas chatasai. Achinami chatas chatasai. Where did we have that? Sure, it's coming up. We'll have it coming up. So there's an extra chatas. It says mechatasai Could have said mechatas. The extra vav is coming to teach me that it's something extra, which means that it's also ma'akiv. Ashkan mitzvah b'shina kodesh. So far, what I have over here is that when it comes to shina kodesh, I have the law that you're supposed to sacrifice it for the right animal, for the right sacrifice. You're supposed to sacrifice the animal for the right sacrifice. Uzrika b'shina bailam. And by shini bailam, they're not to change owners. It says in the pasuk by the zrika, it says alav for him, and that teaches me bein lemitzvah bein la'akiv. Why? Because it says alav hakain mechatasai. It has the extra vav by the alav, which is the zrika. So I know shini bailam for the zrika, but la'akiv b'chol avodas b'shina kodesh, b'shar avodas b'shina bailam bein lemitzvah bein la'akiv min alan. I'm still missing a bunch of details. If this would be a checklist. Disqualify. Okay, la'akiv is to disqualify. If this would be a checklist, I would only have half of it filled in. There would be 2 boxes by everything. Oh, they have a chart over there. Isn't that interesting? There would be 2 boxes by everything. Mitzvah and la'akiv. What's a mitzvah to do, and then what disqualifies it. So I have all of the mitzvahs checked in, but I don't have the disqualification checked in except by Shinoi Bailem by Zrika. Okay. So how do we know everything else that is disqualified? Amar Rabbi Yaina. Rabbi Yaina says, Rabbi Yaina is a teacher of Rabbi Yechanan, right? A student of Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yana is the teacher of Rabbi Yechanan. Asya mechatas nazir. We're going to learn it from mechatas nazir. Yaina should be a student. You don't see under Rabbi Yechanan.
Yeah.
No, under Rabbi Yechanan.
Under Rabbi
You don't see it? All right. Okay. Okay, so Rabbi Yaina says that's
it. He's a student of Rabbi Bahu.
Rabbi Bahu. Oh, so it's like he's a grand student. Okay. So we learned from Chatas Nazir. What does it say about Chatas Nazir? The Ksiv Hikr v'Kayin lefnei Hashem v'Asas Chatasei v'Seilasei she'Kol Asiyesav l'Shem Chatas. I have by the Chatas Nazir. It says again that everything needs to be done for the sake of a Chatas. Okay, so that's a second time telling me the same halacha. One time would be telling me Shinoi Kodesh l'Mitzvah. One time it's telling me that that's the mitzvah. The second time it tells it to me, it's telling it to me that it's ma'akiv as well. Yeah, that's the rule over here. When it repeats it, it's going to be la'akiv. Sorry. Ashkechan shina kodesh. Okay. So you have Shina Kodesh, Shina Bailam in Alam, but how do you know Shina Bailam? All you got from Chatas Nazir was that you can't change it from a Chatas to something else. But how do you know you can't change owners? So there's a parenthesis here that says that the commentaries say to skip it. Let's go to Amar Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua. They say to read the brackets. Skip the parentheses, read the brackets. Amar Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua, Chatas Chatasai. That's where we learn. Remember we quoted before Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua that says Chatas Chatasai. Well, here it is. We learned, it says over there, it says Chatasai, his Chatas, and that's coming to tell me that it needs to be his and not someone else's. So that's where we know Shina Bailam as well. Okay. Seem to have resolved our issues until Ravina comes along. Maskefla Ravina says, he has a question. You can learn from Chatasai, a drasha. And what does the Chatasai tell me? That if you change owners, or if you change, it's ma'akiv. Now, this is only a din by Chatas. It's not a din by other karbanas. By other karbanas, we don't say that. So comes along Ravina and says, but I have the same word by an oila. The same word by an Oila would mean the halacha should be the same by the Oila, and we know that it's not. So it says, what are you going to learn from that? Now you're in trouble. Now the Gemara says, Ravina, that's a nice question, but I don't get why you didn't ask a different question. Ravina, why didn't Ravina ask from those other ones? That could have also been a part of his question. So Zahumi Baile. No, Ravina didn't ask that from Mincha and Nesach, the meal offering and the libations. We didn't ask over there that we didn't ask from that because I know what I learned from the extra vav. Minchasam v'niskehem balayla, minchasam v'niskehem fil lamachar. Over there, I know that it's coming to teach me that it's even at night, or it's coming to teach me that it's even tomorrow. That if you didn't bring it exactly together with the sacrifice, you could bring it later. The meal, the flour, or the oil, or the wine that could be brought later. Okay, Ella oila seila soy, but that was his question. That's why he asked on Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua. What did you learn from the oila? Ella soy my derastavu. That's the question. Su migamri migamiri ma'adadi. Ravina asks on Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua. Your whole limud over here, coming from Rabbi Yaina, is coming from a chatas nazir. It's coming from a nazir, and we're learning. Oh, it says by the nazir, and the nazir has to bring a carbon chatas. So that's going to apply also to a regular chatas. So 1 second, but they're so different. Chatas chelav mi chatas nazir legamri. You can't compare a regular chatas called chatas chelav, a chatas that's brought because someone committed a sin that would incur excision, kares. You can't learn chatas chelav from chatas nazir. The chatas nazir is only one of several sacrifices that come as a set. The nazir has to bring a few sacrifices. One of them is the chatas. Could say that maybe because it comes together with other sacrifices as a set, you have to be very careful what it is. But a regular chatas that doesn't come together in the set, so maybe over there you don't have to be so careful. Chatas nazir mechatas chelav legamri. You can't learn the opposite either. You can't learn what it says by chatas nazir from chatas chelav shken kares, because chatas chelav is the laws of kares, excision. That's a very strict. And the only way that we have the halachas over here of the la'akiv and all of this, because it said it once by the chatas, now it says it again by the chatas chatas nazir. So the combination of these two of these limudim teaches me all the halachas. But if you can't learn one from the other, then each one has its independent laws. Then I don't have that combination. Then I don't know it's ma'akiv. I don't know all of these things. No, individual sacrifice. It's just that the fact that it comes with other ones tells me that maybe the halachas may be different. Okay. Ella Amar Rava, rather Rava says, what's that, Tess? Ella Amar Rava. Okay. Rava says, Asya michatas mitzaira. We're not going to learn from the chatas nazir. We're going to learn from the chatas that a mitzaira brings during his purification process. The ksiv, it says, "Vasa kayin as a chatas." The kayin will do the chatas. She kalas yosev l'shem chatas. It has to be done for the chatas. Oh, it's repeating the same halacha that we have, and we know one from the others. So it must be coming to teach me that it's ma'akiv. Ashkan shini kaidesh. But this is only teaching me Shini Kaidesh, that it needs to be a chatas. You're not teaching me Shini Bailam, it needs to be his. Shini Bailam minale, how do you know Shini Bailam, that it can't bring the sacrifice for a different owner? It's going to atone for the one that is becoming purified. It can only bring it for this one that's being purified, not for someone else that's being purified. Comes to teach me that that it needs to be shinu bailam, that you can't change owners or else it's invalid. But 1 second, how are you going to learn this from the other one? How are you going to learn a regular chatas from chatas mitzayra? Chatas chelim, chatas mitzayra layalfi. You can't learn one from the others. Chatas Chatas Mitzvah itself comes with other sacrifices as part of a set. Just like we had the same question that we had by the Nazir. Chatas Mitzvah and Chatas Chelev legamri. You can't learn the Mitzvah, the leper, from the Chatas Chelev. So in the sin that incurs excision, shkein kares, because there's a punishment of kares there. It's much stricter. So the Gemara answers, chada mechada leyatzia. One you can't learn from another one. However, teisi chada mitarte. But when you combine them together, then we can learn one from the other. Because whenever you ask, but this is different than that, you say, well, the other one doesn't have that detail. So you see, that's not the reason for it. You say, well, maybe the reason why we're stricter by the Chatas Mitzvah is because the Chatas Mitzvah has a detail that's not by the Chatas Chelev. I said, yeah, but you see that that's not the reason, because the Chatas Nazir doesn't have it, and still the halacha applies. Right? So the Gemara says, so the Gemara says, okay, which one are you telling me is extra? Which one could have been left out? And we could have learned from the other ones. It says, don't say this one, and we'll learn from the other ones. Don't say the Chatas Chelev, and we'll learn Chatas Chelev from the Chatas Nazir and the Chatas Mitzvah. The Gemara says, what? Maybe if it didn't say Chatas Chelev, by the Chatas of the Mitzvah and the Chatas of the Nazir, I would say that over there I have the law, because they come as a set with other sacrifices. You have to be very strict about that. Gemara says, well, okay, so I wouldn't have known Chatas Chelev. So don't say the Chatas Nazir, and you learn from the other two. What are the other two? Chatas Chelev and Chatas Mitzvah. It says, Malahanach Shkenin Lem Shaila. Interesting halach over here. A nazir can go to a chacham and be mater neder, and he takes it off. It says if it didn't say chatas nazir, and you would try to learn chatas nazir from chatas chelev and chatas mitzayra, I would say that maybe the leniency of the nazir, that he can get it off, is also a stringency. A lot of times we don't do this. A lot of times we would say, we're looking for a stringency. You see that that's stricter. And you see that it's stricter, that's why we have to be stricter by it. Now we're saying, we see that there's a leniency there, that you can get it off with just going to a chacham and taking off the naziris. So therefore, maybe that leniency implies that there's also a strictness. That's not going to be totally lenient, right? Because there's a leniency, maybe there's a strictness also. The Gemara says, okay, so then you can't learn it from it. You can't learn from this from the other ones. Actually, I'm not explaining it right. No, I mean, you have to learn it that it's the opposite. The leniency would tell me that maybe over here I should be more lenient.
He's saying to keep it, to keep the halacha.
Say that by chatas nazir, not chatas nazir, by chatas chelev and chatas mitzvah, there's no way of getting it off, and so therefore you have to be strict, and therefore okay. I saw this and somewhere else in the Gemara. That's why I was using it here, but it's over here it doesn't fit. Over here, the leniency would tell me to be lenient. Okay. Correction. So be undone, right? So that would tell me that
you said it right. You said really? since there's a leniency, that means there's somewhere else that it's stricter. Somewhere else is mitzvah. In other words, there's another not.
Okay. Shakaya, thank you for. But nevertheless. So leilech tevrachmana v'chatas mitzvah v'tesim mehana. So okay, let's do it differently. Don't write the chatas mitzvah. This is the third one. Don't write the chatas mitzvah, and we'll learn the mitzvah from the other ones. It says malahanach shkenein bon bedalas. 1 second. Chatas mitzvah. Yeah, chatas mitzaira could be brought. What does it come as? Does it come as a bird? It comes as a bird. If the person doesn't have enough money, it goes in this tax bracket. The sliding scale, depending on how wealthy he is, that's what type of sacrifice he brings. So over here, we would say that over here it has this other halacha that the other ones don't have. That if he doesn't have enough money, he could bring a different sacrifice. So maybe also if he has a different intention, maybe it's going to be valid. Okay. Ella Amar Kra. So that this option didn't work. So what do we do now is we quote a pasuk which we had quoted before, which we know already. At the end of the section of sacrifices, it says that this is the law of the burnt offering, of the meal offering. It's everything is compared to the shlamim. Ma shlamim, the peace offering, just like the peace offering. Ben shina b'kodesh, shina kodesh, ben shina b'ayla, bin l'shma l'mitzvah. We know over there by the shlamim that it's supposed to be brought for the right intention. Avchatas ben shina kodesh, ben shina b'ayla, bin l'shma l'mitzvah hilkach mitzvah mishlamim v'hanachrei la'akev. If I know already from the shlamim what you're supposed to do, then now I have all of these psukim that we quoted on Daf Ches, the whole of Amud Aleph, this whole psukim, all these that we quoted. We say, yeah, but it's only telling me the mitzvah. It says, no, the mitzvah I have already from the comparison to the shlamim. All these psukim are telling me the extra one, which tells me that it's ma'akiv, which is that it's, what's the word? Ma'akiv? Disqualify. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Prevent, disqualify. Prevent its validity. Okay. Try translating into English the yeshiva word chalais. Chalais means like, when does it take effect? When is the chalais? They try to translate that. It's like there's no word in English for it. Anyway. Okay. Ashkan chatas chelev. So far, what we got over here was a regular chatas that it's ma'akiv if it's disqualified if you don't have the right intention. The ksiv bei, the ksiv balachatas. Actualize maybe. So if you go back exactly one page, one column, we quoted the pasuk. How do we know that a chatas it's ma'akiv if you don't have the right intention? Bottom line of the Zayin Amud Beis, we said v'shachat isa lechatas, that you have to slaughter it for a chatas. Now we're saying, okay, so we know that by a chatas chelev it has to be slaughtered for a chatas, and otherwise it's not going to be valid. However, chatas tavedas kichavim the shmias akol abitis vasayim etumas mekdash hakadosh like sivbo minolan. How do we know? Over there, it doesn't say v'shachat chatas by these other sacrifices. One is by avodah zarah, but there's also a chatas. Another sacrifice is by the karban oila v'yored. This is a chatas that's on a sliding scale, where if someone is administered an oath of testimony, that he knows testimony, that he doesn't know testimony, he has to swear, or if he swears falsely, or if he contaminates the temple, he has to bring a karban chatas, which that is an oila v'yored. Like Sivu, it doesn't say minala. How do we know over there that type of chatas, those chatas are also ma'akiv, disqualified if it doesn't bring it right? It says chatas davidus kechavim asya mechatas chelev. The chatas davidus kechavim we're going to learn from chatas chelev. Shkein kares k'mais, because both of those we do a ma'atzad comparison. If this is invalid, this is also invalid. So both of those are kares. V'hanach kulu asya b'mahatzad. And now, what we were trying to do on the last page, we were going to say that, well, we can learn one from the other, or from the other two, so we can do that with the karban oila v'yored. We can learn that from the chatas that's going to be learned from the chatas of avodah zarah and the regular chatas. The Rashi goes through what the ma'atzad is. If you're going to say, what's the matzad? Chatas chelev, chatas nazir, chatas mitzaira. If you're going to say Chatas chelev is kares. We say, well, we know that that's not the main factor because Nazir Mitzayra are not kares. And we see that the same halacha applies to them. It says, yeah, but what about Chatas Nazir and Mitzayra that they have other sacrifices? We said, well, Chatas chelev only has one sacrifice. So the tzad shava is going to be that it's a chatas, and it needs to be done with the right intention. So I'll bring also these other chatas, and that needs to be with the right intention. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan, the next Gemara.
Pages behind, we can probably make it more clear.
Tanu Rabbanan. Start in a Brisa. Pesach Bismane L'Shmai. We'll have to learn one extra night a week for the next 7 weeks, or maybe 2 nights a week. We could. I may have more time. I don't know when I have more time. That's the thing. Oh, Shavuos night. I'm gonna have the whole night. Maybe. But Sunday it's hard because we're learning an hour and a half. It's hard to concentrate. Let's see. Okay. Taner Rabbanan was taught in the Brisa. Pesach Bismanai, Korban Pesach, that's brought on the 14th of Nisan, has to be brought with the right intention. Lishmai is kosher. Shaloi Lishmai is basal. If it's for the wrong intention and it's brought at the right time, then it's basal. However, this entire halacha flips when it's not brought at the right time. If you're bringing a Korban Pesach that you didn't bring Erev Pesach, you're bringing it, it wasn't brought, you bring it another time, then Lishma, if you try to bring it for a Korban Pesach, not on Pesach, not on Erev Pesach, then it's possible. Lishma, for the right intention, is possible. Shaloi Lishma, if you bring it for a different Korban, then it's going to be kosher. Exactly the opposite of on Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach, Lishma is kosher, Lishma is possible. Not on Erev Pesach, Lishma is possible, Shaloi Lishma is kosher. Okay, there's a simon over here. Probably stands for something significant. Okay. Huh? Oh, it's the name of the rabbis. Okay, good. Minani Mili. Where do we know this? I'm Ravu the Shmuel. So the Shmuel's father. Shmuel's father says that we learn it from the following pasuk. Amar Kra, V'im min atzayin karbana lezevach hashlamim, lezevach shlam la'Hashem. That if the sacrifice is from, this is talking about the karban shlamim. It says that if you bring it, the karban shlam could be brought from this type of animal, in a bakar, from the cattle. It could also be brought from sheep. And if he brings the karban shlamim from sheep, it says davar abam min atzayin yeh lezevach hashlamim. Something that's brought from sheep could be also brought as a shlamim, which means that what sacrifice is brought from sheep? The karban pesach. And if you bring it for a shlamim, then it becomes a shlamim. Maybe it's only not disqualified if you have intention by the karban pesach.
Never heard of a Paschal goat.
It actually is allowed to be a goat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget what it says. Why the sheep was more common. I think there's a taste for some sachem.
Because they worshipped sheep in Egypt, and they probably didn't kill them. So like India.
I had a question on that. I saw in the one of the Chumashim, maybe the Aryeh Kaplan. I saw somewhere that they actually worship the female sheep. I don't know if they worship the male sheep. I don't know. I know there was one concept that sheep was worshipped, and therefore the shepherds that couldn't shepherd in the same place. You know, they didn't. That wasn't something that they did in Egypt. They had to live in a separate area because the job of being a shepherd wasn't correct. Okay. Then, was it clear that the Pesach Mitzrayim was the God, that they were taking their God? That says in the pasuk.
They had to tie it to them.
So what are you doing? And that was so it was clear that it was a God. There must have been that they were worshiping more than that. Just the icon, I think that they found, those icons that they found were female sheep. But it could be that they worship the other sheep as well.
But the Korban Pesach has to.
Korban Pesach is male. That's why I'm asking on that.
Maybe that's why there were so many males, because they worshiped the females, and therefore the females had a lot of babies, and there were a lot of males. Either way, I
Okay.
can win.
Could it be that?
Okay. Okay, I give up. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of okay.
Ask an Egyptian.
Yeah. So maybe shlamim, maybe only a Korban Pesach that's offered as a shlamim is going to be kosher, but not as another sacrifice. Maybe as an oila, it's not going to be kosher. Shlamim minachin eloi. Amar Rabbi Ila, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Ila. That's probably the lamed in the vav in the shaloi in the simanis. Rabbi Yochanan lezebach. It says lezebach shlamim. It says lezebach l'rabbis kol zebach. No, anything that's slaughtered that could be another sacrifice. Anything that's from sheep could be also another sacrifice as well, which is referring, anything from sheep is referring to the Korban Pesach. It could be a shlamim, it could be other sacrifices as well. One second, maybe it doesn't turn into a shlamim when you slaughter Korban Pesach. Maybe if you slaughter it as a shlamim, yeah, it's a shlamim. If you slaughter it as an oila, maybe it becomes an oila. Says yeah, if it would say shlamim or a zevach, then you're right. But as the zevach shlamim, we call the shachet just lay shlamim lehevi. It says zevach shlamim. It comes to tell me that everything becomes a shlamim. The Korban Pesach that's slaughtered not as a Korban Pesach turns into automatically a shlamim. The default Korban Pesach is shlamim. Ema lezevach klal shlamim prat klal pratim b'chlal mashe b'frat shlamim midachin alai. Maybe we have to learn this like this. It says, "Minatzayin im minatzayin karbanet lezevach shlamim." Something that comes from the sheep is going to be for zevach shlamim. Zevach is a generalization. Any sacrifice. Shlamim is specific. How does it work if you have a generalization and then a specific? It says ein b'chlal ala mashe b'frat. It's only the specific that we're talking about. We diminish the whole generalization to be just the specific. Only something that's a shlamim, but not an oila. Only. Okay, the Gemara says, well, you read one more word. It says zevach shlamim la Hashem. For Hashem, Hashem is a generalization again. So other klal. This, interesting. I can't see if that's what they worship. Ancient Egypt did not worship only female sheep. They were ram and other animals. Oh, especially ram associated with the god. Oh my gosh. Okay. The concept of worshiping animals in Egypt was complex. Okay. This is the nail. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara says, one second. You can't, it's not a klal prata klal. We just turned it into klal prata klal. What happens by a klal prata klal? Generalization, specific generalization. What we say is not that the whole generalization is only the specific. No, we're including everything that's similar to the specific. What would that be? Anything that's a sacrifice, right? Doesn't have to be. It's not just the specific. It's including. Okay. So the problem is, so we say now, but one second, the second klal is not the same as the first klal. It says called the lashem afilu la'ifas afilu menachas. When you say zebach, you mean we're referring to only to an animal sacrifice. When you say lashem, you're referring to meal offerings and also bird offerings. It says, well, don't worry about that. Because Tanad Beir Rabbi Shmuel taught that you can also learn a klal prata klal, even if the second klal isn't similar to the first one. If that's the case, then it's a generalization, specific generalization. We can only have it similar to this. We have what's similar to the detail. Just like the specific is a shlamim, which if it's brought for the wrong intention, it's still valid. So too over here, anything that's for the if it's for the wrong intention, it would still be valid. That's the carbon Pesach, not on Pesach. First, 1 second. This is only telling me things that are brought b'neder and adava. Let's say he brings a carbon Pesach as a asham. Maybe that should be not valid. Maybe only if you brought it as something that's a donation, it should be valid. It says Ella lezevach ribuyahu. Rather, we're not going to do a klal prat. We dropped the whole klal prat. Sorry, we're going to learn it because there's an extra word of lezevach, and that tells me that we have an extra lima that's coming to teach me that anything that it's brought for is going to be valid. Say 1 second, maybe whatever you slaughtered for, whatever carbon you slaughter, carbon pesach for, that's what it turns into. Amar Rav Avin says, Doichin kachim anechalim, it's a kachim anechalim. Being doichin kachim anechalim, it's a kachim anechalim. Carbon pesach is eaten. And we're saying that it was going to be similar to a shlamim. If it's slaughtered as a shlamim, it would turn into a shlamim. So we say we'll turn it into a shlamim, but we're not going to turn it into something that's not eaten. Okay, the Gemara says 1 second. But the chatas and asham are also eaten. Ella dechen kachim nechalam l'chol adam. Itel kachim nechalam l'chol adam. Bein dechen kachim nechalam l'chol adam. It's kachim nechalam l'chol adam. But there's a difference. Shlamim is eaten by any person as long as it's in Yerushalayim. Men, women, children, any family, the Yisraelim, Kayanim, Levi, it doesn't matter. And Chatas and Ashim is only eaten by the Kayanim, male Kayanim. So therefore the Korban Pesach is going to be a Shlamim, which that's the way a Korban Pesach was eaten. It's not going to turn into a restricted audience, restricted clientele, restaurant clientele. Only male kayanim allowed. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin says, "Doichin kachim kalam, it's a kachim kalam." And we're going to turn a sacrifice that's kachim kalam of lesser holiness to a sacrifice of lesser holiness. We're not going to turn it into a sacrifice of higher holiness, which would be a chatas or an asham. Maskeflo Rabbi Yitzchak Rebbe. Rabbi, what's this Aleph? Savrin, is that his name? Yeah. Rabbi Savrin. He asks, Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of Rabbi Savrin, asks, hey, you told me that you can keep a sacrifice at the lower, the shlamim that's of lesser holiness, could remain of lesser holiness, so maybe it should turn into a meiser. The Gemara says, well, what would that mean? You turn it into meiser. My hilchasa. What would that tell me if it would be meiser? That you don't have to pour the wine and oil. You don't have to have the wine and oil coming along with it. And you also won't get malchus. You will get malchus, right? A meiser, it's not allowed to be redeemed. Other sacrifices could be redeemed. Meiser has a strictness. So the Gemara says, Amar Kra, regarding this, the pasuk says, Asiriya Kodesh, Zeh Meiser ve'ein acher Meiser. Only the 10th one is Meiser, but other sacrifices, even if they're brought as a Meiser, don't turn into Meiser. What about by Bechar? Maybe we could say that if a Korban Pesach is slaughtered as a Bechar, it should have the status of a Bechar. Where it says, "My hilchasa," what would that mean? That it would have a status of bechar. Laili by nesachim, that you won't need to pour in. Inami d'leisel l'kayanim, or maybe that you have to give it to the kayanim if you slaughter it with the intention that it's a bechar. The Gemara says, "Bechar nami evra or avra mimaisa gamar. We learn kol sheyavar. It says vavarta kol sheyavar tachas shevet vavarta kol peterechem. I have a word that it's a verbal analogy, gzeira shava, from bechar to meiser. So we're going to say whatever would be the halacha by meiser, which means only meiser itself could be meiser. So to only bechar could be a bechar, not an animal that's sacrificed for as if it's a bechar. Okay. This is an interesting one. Maybe if you shecht it as if it's an exchange for a sacrifice, then this animal should be as if it's exchange for a sacrifice. What would that mean? That this is an exchange. That you would get malchus, because you're not allowed to exchange a sacrifice. And now you're bringing it as an exchange sacrifice with the intention. So, malchus. Or else you can't redeem it. There's a halacha by tomorrow, you can't redeem it. Well, Amar Mar Zutra Breder of Nachman Amar Krava Yehu Tmurasi. Zutmura Vein Acher Tmura. Okay. So we know by Tmura the same thing, that only the Tmura is a Tmura. Tmura, the exchange animal, is an exchange animal. Not a carbon pesach that's slaughtered as if it's an exchange animal, it should turn into that. But what if it's shechted for a taida? It should turn into a taida. It says, so what would that mean? It says, Latine lechem, that you would have to bring bread along with it. Mikamidi, the pesach ufei like bay lechem, umaisrei bay lechem. It says, would it be possible? The pesach itself doesn't need bread, but now when I have a leftover carbon pesach, and I'm bringing it, that will need bread. So 1 second. If that's the case, then when you turn it into a shlamim and you have to bring along the libations along with it, how is it possible that you're bringing libations if the original one didn't require that? The Gemara says no. Anan hachi kamrina. We're saying the following. If I have an extra taida, because let's say I had one carbon taida Thanksgiving offering, and I lost it, so I brought another one. So I bring the first one as a carbon taida. I bring the one that I have as a carbon taida, then I have to bring the other one also. But the second one that I bring, I don't need to bring the bread along with it. Now when I'm bringing a carbon pesach as a carbon taida, I'm going to have to bring bread with it. Okay. Should we, let me see where the end is over there. There's like a pause. Which way am I going? This way? I go this way. I can go until Maskefler of Tana. Let's stop right here. Let's do right here. Okay, we're stopping by Maskefler of Yemer Breder of Hillel. Stopping by Hillel.
Before you hang up, there was some discussion again regarding the trip.
Yeah.
Somebody voiced the fact that Yitzi can go, since he was one of the original organizers, bothered him. I don't want to say his name, but
Right.
it makes it's a big valid point, whether or not that's enough reason to change the trip. I don't know how important these dates are for you. I don't know if you want to see your father.
No. I didn't have any.
Yeah. So.
That was Moshe said that it would be a cheaper time.
Well, right now it's $1,400. I looked up. It's $1,400.
It's going to go between 1,014,
it's
you know,
always
or 1,017. Yeah.
It's
$200, $300 this way, that way.
So I personally, Jay Berg and I were planning a trip after Sukkot, so we'll probably go around that time anyway. We were going to go a week earlier and then stay an extra week, and he would join us possibly, or at least I would then join you. So I'm okay for November, but first week in December. But you got to have at least a bunch of guys going. So I don't know.
We have to take a poll. Okay.
Or we can always do 2 trips. That could be my first trip. It's been so long, and then when what's his name?
The first trip you come back is just to bring your wife some presents from duty free. Then you have to go back to spend some time and to. Okay. Josh, are you in? Would you come to Israel with us if we go? And Chaim?
It sounds exciting.
Okay.
There's a restaurant.
Not sure. Depends on dates and information.
There's a restaurant that has multiple shawarmas, and it has like four, and one of them is a bakar, one is haidu, one for the kohanim only.
$1,400 just for shawarma. What a taste!
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. Have a good day. Okay.